A regular Tuesday at First National. The revolving doors of First National whispered Mei Lee into the cool, marble-floored lobby. She nodded curtly at the security guard Barry, a man whose cheerfulness never seemed to wane, even on Tuesdays. "Morning, Mrs. Lee," he boomed, his voice a comforting rumble in the otherwise sterile environment. "Big deposit today?" May offered a tight smile. "Routine, Barry. Just routine." She navigated the velvet ropes, her calfskin briefcase swinging purposefully at her side. The click of her heels echoed, a staccato rhythm against the low hum of fluorescent lights and the muffled clatter of keyboards. At 58, Mei Lee was a force to be reckoned with, the CEO of a thriving tech company she'd built from the ground up. Her sharp gaze missed nothing, and today, it scanned the bank with a critical eye, noting the slightly askew promotional posters and a stray coffee stain near the customer service desk. Behind window 3, Sarah Miller fought back a yawn. Tuesdays were the worst. The post-weekend lull always seemed to stretch on forever, filled with an endless parade of small transactions and polite requests for change. She plastered on her best customer service smile as she processed Mrs. Henderson's withdrawal for bingo night, then Mr. Peterson's deposit of loose coins, each interaction chipping away at her already dwindling enthusiasm. Sarah glanced at the motivational poster taped to her monitor. "Bloom where you are planted!" and resisted the urge to roll her eyes. Blooming felt impossible when she was stuck counting pennies and dreaming of a life beyond the teller line. She yearned to use her creative writing degree to craft stories instead of stapling deposit slips. But student loans loomed, and the thought of disappointing her parents, who had sacrificed so much for her education, kept her tethered to this beige-walled reality. Another customer approached, a young man fiddling with his phone. Sarah forced a smile. "Good morning, sir. How can I help you today?" He mumbled something about transferring funds and Sarah diligently entered the information, the repetitive motions almost hypnotic. She imagined herself as a robot, programmed to perform the same tasks over and over, her personality slowly eroding with each transaction. Finally, a lull. Sarah leaned back in her chair, stretching her stiff shoulders. She closed her eyes for a moment, picturing herself sitting at a sun-drenched cafe in Paris, writing in a leather-bound journal. A sharp cough jolted her back to reality. Mei Lee stood before her window, her expression impatient. In her hand she held a check, crisp and official-looking, the kind that made Sarah's palms sweat. It was large, she could tell even from here. "Good morning," Sarah stammered, her cheeks flushing slightly. "How can I help you?" Mei Lee placed the check on the counter with a decisive thud. "I need to deposit this into my business account." Her voice was clipped, efficient. Sarah picked up the check, her eyes widening slightly. The amount was significant, enough to cover several months of her salary. She quickly typed the information into the system, her fingers fumbling slightly. She glanced at Mrs. Lee, whose gaze was fixed on her with an unnerving intensity. "Account number, please?" Sarah asked, her voice barely a whisper. Mei Lee rattled off a string of numbers, each one precise and unwavering. Sarah double-checked them, her heart pounding in her chest. She felt Mrs. Lee's eyes boring into her, judging her every move. The pressure mounted, the weight of the transaction, the scrutiny of the CEO, all converging on her like a physical force. She hit the final key, initiating the deposit. The computer whirred, and for a split second, Sarah felt a surge of relief. Then, a red error message flashed across the screen. Transaction failed. Insufficient funds. Sarah's blood ran cold. She knew, with a sinking certainty, that this Tuesday was about to get a whole lot worse. The shredded dream. The overhead lights buzzed, a maddening thrum that drilled into Sarah's skull. She pivoted in her worn chair, the pleather groaning under her weight. Another slip, another ghostly signature awaiting validation. Lee, the name coalesced then dissolved as her thoughts strayed to the pottery workshop prospectus lying dogged in her purse. The cool, yielding resistance of clay, the meditative hum of the wheel, the quiet triumph of creation, an escape hatch from this purgatory of ledgers and forms. "Morning, Sarah." Mrs. Lee's voice, usually a commanding mezzo-soprano that sliced through the bank's sterile atmosphere, barely registered today. "Morning," Sarah mumbled, pasting on a smile. A glance at the check revealed a substantial sum, easily 6 figures. Another venture capital injection, she hazarded. Mrs. Lee was a fixture, invariably coiffed and confident, radiating an understated authority that Sarah coveted. She punched in the routing number, the account number. Her fingers felt like lead weights. The pottery application beckoned from the recesses of her mind, gleaming ceramics, textured sculptures, a life beyond this soul-crushing cubicle. Suddenly, a racket erupted near the entrance. A toddler, no more than 5, wailed, clutching a drooping balloon. His mother, face etched with fatigue, snapped at him in hushed tones. The shrill sound pierced Sarah's already frayed focus. Her hand spasmed. The check, still in her grip, veered off course. Instead of slotting neatly into the deposit tray, it angled toward the waiting jaws of the paper shredder lurking beneath the counter. She scrambled, fingertips grazing the edge of the paper, but too late. The machine sprang to life with a guttural snarl. The check was gone. Time warped, first compressing into a pinprick, then expanding into an infinite void. Sarah gaped at the shredder, its green light blinking, a taunting symbol of normalcy amid utter disaster. The composed serenity of Mrs. Lee's face crumbled into disbelief. Her perfectly arched brows shot skyward. Her subtly rouged lips trembled almost imperceptibly. "What have you done?" The question was a mere exhalation, thick with incredulity. Sarah's throat seized. She tried to apologize, to explain, but her vocal cords had seemingly dissolved. Only a choked, "I'm so sorry," escaped. The green light blinked on. The shredder sat sated, digesting its contraband. Mrs. Lee advanced, her eyes narrowed to slits. The quiet power Sarah had always sensed had evaporated, replaced by a raw, simmering fury. "That was Michael's tuition," she uttered, her voice rising in pitch. "Every cent I've saved for 18 years. Sarah's stomach plunged. Michael. Her son. She recalled glimpsing him once, a gangly adolescent with kind eyes and an awkward smile. He'd held the door open for his mother, his face flushed with pride. The pottery application seemed frivolous now, utterly inconsequential. A wave of nausea engulfed her. She had just obliterated 18 years of someone's future. Mrs. Lee's carefully constructed facade shattered. Tears gathered, blurring her meticulously applied makeup. "How could you be so negligent?" she gasped, her voice thick with emotion. "It was everything." Sarah wanted to vanish, to burrow into the earth and disappear forever. I don't know what to say," she stammered, her own eyes welling. "I'll fix it. I promise. I'll do anything." But the words rang hollow, even to her own ears. How could she possibly mend this? How could she reverse the damage she had wrought? The shredded dream lay at her feet, a pathetic pile of confetti. Damage control. The air in the bank lobby hung thick with unspoken accusations. Sarah Miller, still trembling, watched the scene unfold as if from a great distance. The red stain on her hands seemed to pulse with an eerie light. "Mrs. Lee, please." A new voice cut through the tension. Mr. Thompson, the bank manager, his tie loosened and forehead gleaming with a thin sheen of sweat, approached them. He exuded an air of practiced calm, the kind honed over years of pacifying irate customers and navigating bureaucratic quicksand. "Let's discuss this in my office, shall we? Somewhere a little more private." Mei Lee stood firm, her posture rigid. "Private? The damage has already been done, Mr. Thompson. Publicly." Her voice, though controlled, vibrated with suppressed fury. She gestured towards the shredded remains of the check still clutched in Sarah's trembling hand. "That was a significant deposit from my company. A deposit that now exists as confetti." Mr. Thompson carefully avoided looking directly at Sarah. "I understand your frustration, Mrs. Lee. And I assure you, we will get to the bottom of this. This is highly irregular, and we take such matters very seriously. A full investigation will be launched immediately." He spread his hands in a placating gesture. We'll review security footage, interview the staff involved, and do everything in our power to rectify the situation. Rectify? Mei echoed, a bitter laugh escaping her lips. Can you unshort a check worth more than your yearly salary, Mr. Thompson? Can you undo the blatant disrespect shown to me, to my company? She took a step closer to him, her gaze unwavering. This isn't just about the money, though the money is important. It's about trust. And right now, I have absolutely no trust in this institution. Mr. Thompson winced, the placating smile faltering. He glanced nervously at the gathering crowd of onlookers, their faces a mixture of morbid curiosity and thinly veiled judgment. Mrs. Lee, I understand your feelings. But I promise you, we are committed to resolving this. We value your business and your trust. Perhaps, if you would just allow me a moment to explain the procedures we will be taking. He gestured again towards his office, a small, windowless room at the back of the bank. Mei hesitated, her eyes darting between Mr. Thompson, Sarah, and the shattered remnants of her check. The scent of cheap air freshener and stale coffee hung heavy in the air. An investigation, she repeated, the word laced with skepticism. And what guarantees do I have that this investigation won't be swept under the rug? That this teller, she pointed a sharp finger at Sarah, who flinched, won't simply be given a slap on the wrist and told to be more careful next time? Mr. Thompson's smile returned, though it lacked warmth. Mrs. Lee, I assure you, we are committed to transparency. We will keep you informed of our progress every step of the way. And if wrongdoing is found, appropriate action will be taken. Mei studied him for a long moment, her expression unreadable. The humming of the fluorescent lights seemed to amplify the silence. Finally, she sighed. Fine. But I want everything documented. Everything. And I want a direct line to whoever is leading this investigation. I will not be fobbed off with platitudes and empty promises. She turned her back on Sarah, the movement sharp and dismissive. As she followed Mr. Thompson towards his office, she paused at the advertisement screen. Her son's face beamed back at her, a perfect, manufactured smile promising financial security and community trust. The irony was a bitter pill to swallow. Michael's secret. The chipped ceramic mug warmed Michael's hands as he hunched over his sketchbook, the scent of lukewarm chamomile tea barely registering. Outside, the Seattle drizzle was a constant, gray hum, a soundtrack to the quiet battle raging on the page before him. He attacked the paper with a charcoal pencil, coaxing the contours of a face into existence. Not a real face, not exactly. More of a feeling, a fleeting expression captured in the slope of a brow, the curve of a lip. He was trying to translate the anxiety he felt about his future into something tangible, something beautiful. He paused, tilting his head. The light from the desk lamp cast long shadows, highlighting the planes of the emerging face. It needed something more. He picked up a finer pencil, adding delicate lines around the eyes, etching in the faintest hint of a furrow between the brows. A whisper of doubt, a question mark hanging in the air. Yes. That was it. A notification pinged on his laptop, nestled amongst tubes of paint and half-finished canvases. Michael glanced at the screen. An email from First National Bank Art Competition. He almost dismissed it, assuming it was spam. But then he remembered seeing a flyer about the competition in a coffee shop downtown. Local artists, cash prizes, the chance to be featured in the bank's promotional materials. His stomach did a nervous flip. He clicked on the email, scanning the details. The theme was community. Artists were encouraged to submit pieces that reflected their connection to the city, its people, its spirit. Michael chewed on his lower lip, glancing at the sketch in front of him. Could it work? It wasn't exactly a portrait of Seattle, but it was certainly about connection, about the shared human experience. He knew what his mother would say. Michael, focus on your studies. Art is a hobby, not a career. He could practically hear her voice, laced with that familiar blend of love and practicality. She wanted him to be secure, to have a stable job, like Mr. Henderson's son, the accountant. Art school was a pipe dream, A luxury they couldn't afford, not with the mortgage and the mounting medical bills. But the idea of entering the competition had taken root. It was a chance, however small, to prove himself, to show her that his passion was worth pursuing. And if he won, the prize money would ease some of the financial pressure she carried. He closed his laptop, a sudden resolve hardening his features. He wouldn't tell her. Not yet. He would finish the sketch, refine it, make it the best he possibly could. And then, he would submit it. It would be his secret, his little act of rebellion, his quiet prayer for a future he dared to imagine. He reopened his sketchbook, the email notification already fading from his memory. The face on the page beckoned, waiting to be brought to life. He picked up his charcoal pencil, the familiar weight grounding him. He had work to do. The winning piece. The hum of the fluorescent lights formed a droning backdrop to the judge's silent, assessing gazes. Michael's vibrant canvas, a phoenix erupting from a concrete cityscape, was displayed alongside the other contenders. He was, naturally, excluded from their deliberations. Protocol demanded artist separation. Mrs. Abernathy, head of marketing, tented her fingers, her focus laser-sharp. It's optimistic. A breath of fresh air. Precisely what our current image lacks. That phoenix, those bold hues, it speaks of resurgence, of progress, of brighter horizons. Mr. Davies, the bank's CFO, scoffed. Resurgence? We're a bank, Abernathy, not a therapy group. I still lean towards Ms. Chen's work. Dependable, sturdy, much like our portfolios. He indicated a meticulously crafted oil painting depicting a stalwart oak. Sturdy perhaps, but utterly unmemorable. Abernathy retorted, a glint in her eye. We need to engage the next generation, Davies. People who look beyond spreadsheets. People who dare to envision. The discussion continued, a polite but firm push and pull between the established and the novel. The CEO, Mr. Ito, remained an enigma, his expression inscrutable. A pen tapped a steady rhythm against the polished table as his gaze moved between Michael's phoenix and Chen's oak. He valued both, the steadfastness of tradition, the allure of innovation. His eyes paused at the spiraling pigments of Michael's creation, the raw yearning practically leaping from the surface. He recalled his own mother, her quiet grit, her unwavering faith despite hardship. At length, Mr. Ito broke the silence, his voice a low, resonant tone. The phoenix. It embodies the zeitgeist, I believe. Let us embrace the unconventional. Let us choose hope. Back in his cramped apartment, Michael was a caged animal. The phone felt like dead weight in his palm. Each ring from a neighbor sent a surge of adrenaline through him. He'd been sketching compulsively, filling page after page with frenetic doodles, variations of the phoenix, each a touch more daring, a touch more defiant. He sought refuge in cleaning. The rote actions of wiping surfaces, sweeping the worn floorboards, offered a fragile anchor against the swirling vortex of anxiety. He glanced at the small, personal altar he'd created for his mother. A single, pristine white orchid graced a delicate porcelain vase. He straightened the photograph beside it, a joyful image of his mother on her graduation day. Softly, he pleaded, "Please, Mom. Just a spark of luck." The phone finally shattered the quiet. Michael pounced, his pulse a frantic drumbeat. The voice on the other end was clipped, professional. "Mrs. Abernathy?" "Mr. Lee?" He gulped, his throat suddenly parched. "Yes, ma'am." A pause stretched, agonizingly. The longest silence of his life. "Congratulations, Mr. Lee. Your piece, Ascension, has been chosen as the winning submission. It will be the keystone of our upcoming marketing campaign." The words resonated, almost surreal. He'd won. He had actually won. A dizzying wave threatened to knock him off his feet. "We were deeply impressed by your vision, your artistic command of color, and the inherent message of optimism it communicates," Mrs. Abernathy elaborated, her tone softening ever so slightly. "We anticipate it will resonate deeply with the public." He managed a choked, "Thank you? Thank you immensely." He was beyond coherent thought, utterly stunned. We will be in contact with the specifics regarding the contract and remuneration, she stated. We are very eager to begin working with you. The line disconnected. Michael stared at the receiver, his hand trembling uncontrollably. He'd won. He'd truly done it. He gazed at the orchid, at his mother's beaming visage. A solitary tear traced a path down his cheek, a tear compounded of relief, elation, and vindication. He had made her proud, at last. A familiar face. The rhythmic thud of suction cups against glass echoed down Elm Street. Two men in reflective vests wrestled a colossal poster into place on the bank's facade. Michael's artwork, a vibrant tapestry of abstract shapes and colors that somehow coalesced into a hopeful sunrise, now dominated the street corner. Smaller versions were being strategically placed inside, near the teller windows and above the security desks, ensuring no customer could miss the bank's champion of local art. Mei Lee watched from across the street, her hands clenched so tightly her knuckles ached. Each hammer blow, each scrape of metal against the building, felt like another nail hammered into the coffin of her trust. She'd spent the morning composing emails, a furious but professional barrage directed at every executive she could find listed on First National's website. No response. Not even an automated reply. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders and crossed the street. The glass doors hissed open, releasing a wave of cool, conditioned air that did little to soothe the fire in her chest. The lobby was brighter than she remembered, almost blindingly so. And then she saw it. Another poster, even larger than the one outside, hung directly behind the tellers. Michael's Sunrise. It was impossible to miss, a radiant beacon in the sterile environment. She felt a strange mixture of pride and nausea churn in her stomach. Pride because her son's talent was finally being recognized, nausea because it was being used to plaster over the bank's incompetence, its disrespect. She marched towards the information desk, the clicking of her heels sharp and decisive on the polished floor. A young woman with a forced smile looked up. "How can I help you today? I'm here to inquire about a check that was mistakenly destroyed yesterday." Mei enunciated each word with icy precision. The woman's smile faltered. "Could you give me your account information?" Mei rattled off the numbers, her gaze darting around the lobby, avoiding the poster. She could feel Michael's eyes, or rather, the representation of his eyes, watching her. The woman typed on her computer for what felt like an eternity. "Ah, yes. I see the note here. Mrs. Lee, I understand your frustration. The matter is being investigated. We will contact you as soon as we have more information." "Investigated?" Mei's voice rose. "Investigated? My company's payroll check was shredded. People depend on that money. This isn't some lost sock, this is a critical financial document. What is there to investigate? Someone needs to take responsibility." The woman shrunk back in her chair. "I understand, Mrs. Lee, but I'm just the information clerk." "I can't, then get me someone who can." Mei slammed her hand on the desk, the sound echoing through the suddenly silent lobby. Heads turned, and she saw a few people whispering, pointing. And then she saw it. To the left of the information desk, another poster. This one was different. It wasn't just the artwork. It was a photograph of Michael, beaming, holding a plaque. Beneath the image, bold letters proclaimed, "First National Bank proudly supports local artists. Meet Michael Lee, our talented young artist of the year." The world seemed to tilt. Mei stared, her anger momentarily eclipsed by a wave of disbelief. Michael. Her Michael. His face, plastered all over the bank that had just humiliated her. The bank that clearly valued public image over basic competence. She couldn't breathe. The fluorescent lights seemed to intensify, blurring her vision. The whispers of the other customers amplified into a deafening roar. She stumbled back, her hand flying to her mouth. "Mrs. Lee, are you all right?" The information clerk's voice sounded distant, muffled. Mei shook her head, unable to speak. She backed away, her eyes fixed on Michael's smiling face. It felt like a betrayal, not from Michael, but from the universe itself. She turned and fled, pushing through the glass doors and back out into the chaos of Elm Street. The image of her son's face burned into her retinas. The hope in his eyes felt like a cruel joke. Explanation and guilt. "Mrs. Lee, please allow me a moment," Mr. Thompson soothed, his tone a carefully constructed bridge over the chasm of Mei Lee's despair. He indicated the gaudy banner trumpeting Michael's artwork. "First National prides itself on nurturing young talent in our community. We identify promising artists and provide platforms for their work. Michael's piece, in particular, resonated with its verve, its singular vision. It encapsulates the innovative spirit we champion." Mei Lee's features hardened. "Innovation? You dare call exploiting my son's artistry while denying him the funds for his education innovation?" Though potent, her voice quivered, a warrior battling to contain a flood. The placating words withered on Mr. Thompson's tongue. He'd anticipated tears, quiet acceptance, not this blazing defiance. He modulated his delivery, adopting a timbre of earnest sincerity. "The scholarship program. It functions autonomously. Entirely separate. We were completely ignorant of any connection." Sarah Miller, shrinking by the water cooler, observed the scene, the office's harsh lighting painting everyone in a sickly sheen. Mr. Thompson's assurances rang false, inadequate. She saw Mei Lee's gaze lock onto the banner, Michael's buoyant face now a symbol of betrayal. A glacial dread seeped into Sarah, contrasting sharply with the furnace of shame consuming her. Mei Lee averted her eyes from Mr. Thompson, her gaze traversing the room, finally snagging on the screens showcasing Michael's digital art. Each felt like a renewed violation. She drifted towards the nearest display, her hand rising to touch the cool surface. The simple act of a mother's touch echoed with profound heartbreak. Paralyzed, Sarah watched the raw anguish etched on Mei Lee's face, the silent scream trapped within her. It was unbearable. She pictured her own mother, the unwavering source of her strength, and the disparity between their worlds yawned before her. The weight of her secret, the awareness of her colossal blunder, threatened to suffocate her. She flicked her gaze between Mr. Thompson, still attempting to appease Mrs. Lee with carefully chosen phrases, and the bereaved mother whose world had been so casually overturned. Her limbs felt weighted, but she propelled herself forward. Each step was a painful admission, a silent confession. She had to break the silence, she had to intervene. She cleared her throat, the sound barely audible against the office's hum. Mei Lee seemed oblivious. Sarah edged closer. She caught a faint whiff of Mei Lee's perfume, an incongruously cheerful floral note in the oppressive atmosphere. "Mrs. Lee," Sarah whispered, her voice fracturing. Mei Lee turned, her eyes bloodshot yet piercing, possessing a sorrow that twisted Sarah's heart. I have something to confess." The words escaped her, a dam breached. "It's about the check." Her voice cracked. Tears blurred her vision. "I made a mistake." She steeled herself, prepared for the onslaught, the fury she deserved. Instead, Mrs. Lee simply regarded her, her expression an unreadable mask. Forgiveness and understanding. The sun, a molten hammer, pounded against Mei Lee as she stood across from First National, the heat amplifying the frantic drumbeat in her skull. Michael's sprawling mural blazed from the digital billboard, a cruel irony. This celebration of community now felt like a personal affront. She longed to shatter the screen, obliterate the image, but a profound lethargy kept her rooted to the spot. That check. That devastating embarrassment. It looped endlessly in her mind, a record stuck in a groove. She'd come seeking redress, but now, all she craved was oblivion. Then, the glass doors shimmered, and Sarah Miller emerged. May's muscles clenched, wound tight. Sarah paused, indecisive, before venturing across the street, her approach hesitant. May braced herself. "Mrs. Lee," Sarah began, her voice a fragile thread. We need to talk." May remained silent, her gaze a vice on Sarah's features, searching for any telltale flicker of deceit. Tears blossomed in Sarah's eyes. "It was me," she confessed, the words almost swallowed by the city's roar. "I destroyed your check. I'm so desperately sorry." The admission hung between them, heavy with shame. A wave of disbelief washed over Mei, eclipsing her anger. Sarah? The bank's shrinking violet? Fresh tears coursed down Sarah's cheeks. I was drowning that day. My mother was ailing, bills were crushing me, and I broke. Seeing that amount on the check, I panicked. It was senseless, unforgivable, I know. The fire in Mei's belly subsided, replaced by a tentative curiosity. Why? Why confess now? Sarah rummaged in her purse, fishing for a tissue. Seeing Michael's work splashed across the screen, it was like a knife. Knowing I nearly robbed him of this. Knowing I caused you pain. I couldn't carry it any longer. I planned to resign today, but first you deserved to know. I owed you an apology. Sarah's raw, unfiltered honesty caught Mei off guard. Before her stood not an adversary, but a woman broken by remorse. The space between them crackled with unspoken sentiment. The bank. Are they aware? Mei murmured, her voice barely audible. Sarah shook her head vehemently. No, absolutely not. It's a secret I've guarded jealously. I'm prepared to face the consequences. Mei scrutinized Sarah, then glanced back at the screen illuminating Michael's creation. The vivid hues pulsed with life, a testament to his spirit, his gift. He had navigated immense challenges, and now, his artistry was a beacon for the community. A strange tranquility settled over Mei. She pictured Michael, his unwavering optimism, his innate ability to find good in others. She recalled the community's embrace, their support of his ambitions. Thank you, Sarah, Mei said quietly, the words surprising her. Thank you for your truthfulness. Sarah looked up, her eyes wide with astonishment. You offer me forgiveness? Mei wasn't sure she truly forgave Sarah, not yet. However, she understood the crushing weight of life's burdens, the desperation that could lead to devastating choices. She understood the paralyzing grip of guilt, the isolating burden of a secret. I understand, Mei echoed, her voice gaining strength. I understand we all stumble. What matters is what we do afterward. The knot in Mei's chest loosened, replaced by a fragile spark of optimism. Perhaps, just perhaps, there was space for absolution and empathy, even after such profound betrayal. Gazing at the bank, it no longer represented merely greed or injustice. It stood as a testament to her son's triumph, a symbol of art's transformative power and the community's unwavering resolve. The sun, still blazing fiercely, felt a little gentler now. A new beginning. Mr. Thompson's office felt less like an interrogation room and more like a confessional. Sarah sat across from him, the floral pattern on the visitor chair digging into the back of her thighs. She waited, the silence thick with unspoken judgment. Finally, he cleared his throat. Sarah, what you did was unacceptable. We take the integrity of our employees and the security of our clients' funds very seriously. He paused, the weight of his words heavy in the air. However, he continued, his gaze softening slightly, your immediate confession, your genuine remorse, and the fact that you came forward before an investigation could even begin, that counts for something. He leaned forward, his elbows resting on the polished mahogany of his desk. The bank is willing to give you a second chance, Sarah. A probationary period, mandatory counseling, but a chance nonetheless. Relief washed over Sarah, so potent it made her momentarily lightheaded. Thank you, Mr. Thompson. Thank you, more than I can say. The next few days were a blur of paperwork, meetings, and the gnawing anxiety that she could still lose everything. But amidst the uncertainty, a spark of hope flickered. The bank, surprisingly resourceful, managed to piece together enough of the shredded check to recover the funds. A collective sigh of relief echoed through the branch when Mr. Thompson announced the news. Mrs. Lee would be reimbursed. Meanwhile, across town, Mei Lee was still seething. The initial shock had worn off, replaced by a simmering resentment. She was prepared to wage war, to make an example of the bank that had so carelessly dismissed her hard-earned money. Then Michael showed her the bank's new ad campaign. His face, blown up to billboard size, smiling confidently above the bank's logo. "They want to use my son's face after what they did to me?" She fumed, pacing her small apartment. She felt a surge of protectiveness towards Michael. He was an artist, vulnerable, and she wouldn't let the bank exploit him. A phone call from Mr. Thompson, extending a personal apology and an invitation to lunch, initially fueled her anger. She almost refused. But curiosity, and a sliver of hope that she could somehow leverage the situation to Michael's advantage, convinced her to accept. The lunch was awkward. Mr. Thompson was all charm and apologies, but Mei remained guarded. Then Sarah arrived. Mei's jaw tightened. This was the face of her misfortune, the person who had so carelessly dismissed her. Mr. Thompson introduced Sarah, explaining her role in recovering the funds. Sarah stood before Mei, her eyes brimming with sincerity. "Mrs. Lee, I am so sorry. What I did was inexcusable. I hope, one day, you can find it in your heart to forgive me." Mei studied her face, searching for any hint of deception. She saw only remorse. A flicker of something shifted within her. The righteous anger, while still present, was tempered by a nascent understanding. Perhaps this young woman was truly sorry. Michael arrived then, oblivious to the tension in the air. He greeted his mother with a kiss and shook Sarah's hand, his easygoing nature disarming. As they ate, Michael chattered about his upcoming exhibition, his excitement infectious. He spoke of his dreams, his struggles, his passion for art. Mei watched him, her heart swelling with pride. And as she listened, she began to see Sarah in a different light. A young woman, flawed perhaps, but ultimately human. After lunch, Michael insisted on showing Sarah his studio. Mei hesitated, then followed. The studio was small, cramped, but filled with Michael's vibrant paintings. Sarah was genuinely impressed, asking insightful questions about his technique and inspiration. Later, as they walked home, Mei found herself talking to Sarah, sharing stories about Michael's childhood, his artistic journey. Sarah listened intently, her genuine interest disarming. By the time they reached Mei's apartment, an unlikely bond had begun to form. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet. But it was a beginning. A new beginning built on remorse, redemption, and the shared love for a young artist with a bright future.